All right, everybody. Welcome to the May version of the Thomist Poets Reading Series. We got our good friend, Stephen Knepper, who's, of course, not only a professor and a philosopher, but also now one of the leading literateurs for formal poetry, the New Verse Review. But we're not here to read the folks in the New Verse Review, but to hear from the editor. So, Steve, to tell us a bit more about yourself and take off from there.
Sure. Thank you. I want to start by thanking Christopher for organizing this great series and for giving me the time this evening to read with you all. And I want to thank you all for coming. I mean, I'm really touched and honored that you would take time out of your Sunday evening to be here and to listen to some of my poetry. It means a lot to me. And I see many friends, family members, and some teachers of mine in the poetic world. So it really is, it's very touching to me, and it means a lot. Thank you. Yes, I edit New Verse Review. We just published a special translations issue that was edited by Mary Grace Mangano and by Daniel Cooper. And you definitely want to check that out. It's very good. Some of the people in this room, including Carla, were contributors to it. But then we open up for submissions on June 1st as well, for regular submissions for our summer issue. So send us some work, keep us busy. And thank you for giving the journal a read. Many of you are subscribers, many of you have been contributors. So thank you for taking what was kind of a crazy idea hatched in this very basement, which looks very scholarly behind me. There are all these books, but if I pointed to the other direction, it's just heaps of toys. So in this cinder block basement down here, New Verse Review was hatched, and it's grown into something that I didn't expect. And one of the great rewards of it has been the blessing of getting to know so many great poets and readers of poets like all of you. So thank you. I'm going to start with the time-honored tradition of reading someone else's poetry first. And I'm going to really embarrass Marie Burdett, because she was I had the honor of working with her on her honors thesis at UST this spring, and it's really, really good. And Marie's already a published poet, but I think you're going to be hearing a lot more from her in the future. And I wanted to read a poem of hers that recently appeared in the Society of Classical Poets. This is called The Gravedigger. Just a bit of background. Marie worked as a gardener at Monticello and is a great gardener and farmer, and that shows up in a lot of her poems. So this is The Gravedigger. I garden to acquaint myself with graves, accompanying death with every turn. My spade exhumes pharaonic tombs, engraved by earthworms, hieroglyphic gnaw and churn. I learn the scrawl that's written on old bones, trace epitaphs inscribed with mold. I read the spider weave and leaves. My trowel groans against the ghosts of roots that whitely bleed. Out of the solemn air, the tanager sings, and it seems the reason he has wings, or wears his scarlet garments stitched with ichor, is that all winters perish into springs. Decay transformed to tilth. My scanty plot recants its death and trills with daffodils. Somehow what is depends on what is not. The river made of blood's a river still. I hold no claim on life. I am not proud. The song that leads to life rolls on in waves, awakening drowsed earth. Pull back the shroud, then watch. My garden resurrects its graves. So again, that was Marie Burdett, The Gravedigger. I'll start with one of my own poems that's kind of thematically similar in some ways, I would say. This is called October Twilight. And so much of my poetry comes out of an attempt, I think, to reconnect and to honor, loved ones I've lost, times and places that exist in memories or in stories that have been handed down to me. So I think that this sort of introduces one of the big themes of my poetry as well. The sky pools red this Hallowtide. We enter, ease into a pew, and whisper prayers for those who died, for relatives she never knew. They're my lost souls. She wears all black for later when she'll trick or treat, and thinks of candy in her sack as I write names across the sheet. midway through life, caught on time's hook. I wonder if one day her child will open the remembrance book to make sure that my name's been filed. Returning to the leaf-clogged street, I see masked bones in revelry, a whirl of ghouls and scuffling feet, an angel glancing back at me. I grew up on a dairy farm in South Central Pennsylvania, so I'm going to read you a few farming poems next. This one's called Breach. A farmer knows the point where desperate prayer and blasphemy are one. My God, the shepherd psalmist's cry of dereliction. A windstorm flattens out his corn. A chainsaw bites deep into his firstborn's leg. The well goes dry in August drought. The night my father breathes these words, his lips are beaded up, his cotton shirt soaked through, his arm a swollen mass of blood and phlegm from failed attempts to pinch, to pull, to turn the breached calf's leg, a stubborn inch's task. Frustration mounts as minutes turn to hours without the necessary shift, the cow no longer bellowing. Her head hangs low. Our neighbor puts his shoulder in her side to keep her upright in the narrow stall. The pulling chains lie useless on the floor. I dab a towel across my father's face and keep the water hot. Add iodine to crudely sterilize. The slug of brown uncoils its tendrils in the steaming pail. Despite myself, I think about the day he had to shoot a spraddled cow to ease her misery. She was a heavy milker, $1,000 cow. My mother cried. My father's eyes were wild as he returned the rifle to the rack, went back to work. Damn it all. He sinks against the blocks. My God, he pumps his arm, exhales the words, then stumbles up again to try to wrench a miracle into the world. Next poem is Shade Valley Wonder Guild. So this is based on a real memory. And this is a poem I worked on for a long, long time, and then it kind of given up on. And then A.E. Stallings gave her wonderful lecture on the bat poet, echolocation. And I went back to this and worked on it. And she has a fine bat poem too. And I give it a shout out here with the word silhouette, which is sort of a tie-in with her poem. But this is, a poem about a memory, a very early memory of mine of my cousin Tom taking me out to see this massive swarm of bats in a field. A late June twilight, quivering and wet, each tree's a shadow casting silhouette, and so are we, a man, a boy of 4, walking in matted tracks the wagons score, to where the forest meets the open field, a child's first right within the Wonder Guild. I watch what some dismiss as flying rats, a massive colony of feeding bats. They dip and lift madcap and loose formation as he explains their sonar navigation and how the world so manifestly there reveals itself in ways that we can't share. One loops, careens, then dives down toward the ground, bobbing across topographies of sound. It veers away from some strange form of me, a single note within its symphony. We'll lighten it up with the next couple. These are two kind of weird odes I've been working on. This first one is called the Sci-Fi Channel. I thank you, Sci-Fi Channel of my youth. You helped a bookish farm boy cope with life. Your fantasy, my weird reality. My neighbor's backyard turkeys saw me step off of the bus and chased me up the lane. One time they knocked me down and flogged my face. Somehow it terrified me less to think these birds were pods that evil aliens controlled. They aimed to claim a human host. Much to my mom's chagrin, you had possessed the groaning dish between our house and barn. You manifested out of Ouija static onto our TV screen. A wholesome home disturbed a favorite plot device of yours. You were a poltergeist of programming. Swamp Thing, Dark Shadows, Lost in Space, Space Ghost, George R.R. Martin's Beauty and the Beast, the old school Battlestar Galactica. You never took yourself too seriously. Your robots rummaged from a hardware store. your powdered vampires, plastic skeletons. But you still gave me chills enough to look over my shoulder, walking past the patch of weedy gourds where Pumpkinhead might lurk. One time, my rubber boots slurped down into manure where barnyard concrete stopped and slop began. The suction wouldn't let me go. Imagining a quicksand backstory, the hero, me, lunged forward, fell face first. My father came around the barn in time to see Swamp Thing rise slowly from the muck. And one more of these kind of odes. This one's called Walkman. Of all nostalgia stoked by Stranger Things, Dungeons and Dragons, downtown hardware stores, the kids of clueless parents on the loose, you were the mass-made thing that stirred me most, the apogee of handheld analog, the magic box I can believe would ward some eldritch terror from the upside down. If only you would thwart our egregore. If only we could press rewind, then play. The boombox had its power, its cachet. The Discman was a fall from headphone grace, with skips too clunky on the hip, unhip. You were more personal, more portable, mysteriously private, intimate when cheek to cheek two shared a sonic world. Who cares if mothers claimed we would go deaf? We crouched beside the stereo to hit record when the elusive song came on, then later tucked the tape inside of you. I borrowed, stole, you from my sister once. I took her boyfriend's mixtape from her too. And as the school bus lurched the junior high B team towards Claysburg in the murky glow of February, violet light on snow, I wore your wires, God helmet, foam to ears. You seared the sooty snowscape of my soul, turning the outside in, the inside out. So one last poem that sort of comes out of this sort of childhood series. After we sold our milking herd, when I was still fairly young, my dad worked at a stone quarry for the rest of his career. And he had this long stretch where every night he would fall asleep watching this same documentary about this guy who went to Alaska and built a cabin. It was kind of like this modern day Thoreau story. And he watched this every single night. It's about this guy, Dick Prenneke. I think that the documentary itself was called Alone in the Wilderness, and that's what this poem is called as well, Alone in the Wilderness. My father falls asleep each night in wild Alaska as the VCR unspools. The Panasonic spills its icy blues, its pink aurora borealis hues onto his tundra quilt, makes antlers glint in mounted constellations on the sky expansive wall. Once more, Dick Prenneke, the hero of my father's favorite tape, has left the engine grease and molten splash that nearly took his sight, has left the base to live a quiet life beside a lake, to wonder what work and wood, to chop and shave, a mallet tap to snug a peg just so, and there a cabin stands, with happily a week to spare before the blizzards hit. Dick's even hung a wooden hinged Dutch door. My father, off a 12-hour quarry shift, his only shoulder load a pack like Dick's, gives that Dutch door a knock. They don't talk much, these maker men who left the world of bills to build. A few words for well-crafted joints, then off he walks into the woods again. No cares but grizzly bears, sub-zero temps, a charging moose, that's all. Nothing, I hope, to spoil his nightly trek through sleep's deep snow, alone, not lonely, in the wilderness. So I'm going to sort of switch gears a little bit. I'm going to start with one short poem that's more of kind of a local history poem. A lot of my poems are written about where I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania. And that area is kind of unique because there's this one little island of commercial coal mining in South Central Pennsylvania. Most coal mining is farther to the west or in kind of the northeast of Pennsylvania. There's this one area called the Broad Top, and that's where my maternal grandfather, who I never knew, he died before I had a chance to know him. He was a coal miner there for a while. And this is called the Broad Top. They spent their work days picking in the deep with desks suspended overhead by props, transplanted from the greener world above to raise a leafless forest here below and tremble with each detonating charge. Sometimes a prop gave up its load of rock. Sometimes the air itself deserted them. explosive or asphyxiating damps, toxins that slowly excavated lungs, this job where wages never matched the risk or the exacting steady skill involved. They came up through the entrance at Shift's End, their carbide flames like tongues at Pentecost. Immigrant Sicilians, Rusnoks, Poles, wearers of crucifix and patron saint, beside the locals who had traded plows for mining carts in search of steady pay. The idle-wary Presbyterians and Baptists who used grape juice in the cup. Despite suspicions that could flare to hate, on Easter Sunday when they went to church, they all recalled the grimness of the stone, the miracle of light in such a place. All right, and then I'm gonna read just a lot of what I write is narrative poetry. So I want to share a few of those before I wrap up here. This first one is called Everyday Caphonic. And then one day the boy, urge inexplicable, climbs in the dryer, pulls the tinted door behind him to a bare rim glare, a sun all but eclipsed, his vanishment complete. The underwear and socks muffle his mother's search. Her frantic steps slam doors, her calls and pleading prayers. Eventually she leaves, and he drifts in a cave too hot for him to stand. Red light and shadow shapes, a pile of bones somewhere deep down the humid dark, a tusked snout rooting them. He soporific prey entangled in a net. His mother, bursting through the door again, reports his name, appearance, age into the feudal phone, is startled when a shape masked in her baby's face slides shrouded, swaddled, blinking his terror-scalded eyes out of a metal wound. That next one is a monologue. So, it's in the voice of a character. This first one is called Trespassers. A man who posts his ground should get his wish. I don't want hunters tramping through my woods, and sometimes I could stand the hermit's life myself. I understand the signs and gates. But what about those dummies that he strung? That's taking things too far, it seems to me. The lane back to his place was lined with them. The rubber masks they sell at Halloween on scarecrow bodies lashed in trees. There was a grinning devil with its wings spread out, a clown with bloody teeth, a werewolf creeping along a limb, a vampire upside down. It was a hunting camp before, and he had pried the antlers off the shed and fixed them onto masks. What do you make of that? Dumb kids were bound to take it as a dare. It took their mom 3 days to make the call. She didn't love admitting that her sons trespassed to throw some corn up on his roof. But he had flashed a spotlight through the woods, shot off a round, and she was scared he'd seen them well enough to carry on his quarrel. She'd met him once in town and said his eyes looked plenty murderous enough to her. So I drove over there to have a talk with him. The gate was closed and padlocked shut. I hollered, but he didn't answer me. Walking the lane, my neck hair was on end from all those faces leering down at me. He turned the yard into a garden patch, but it had gone to weeds. I had to wade through them to reach the porch. At first, I thought it was another dummy sprawled across the rail, but then I saw the flies. His face had curdled up like week old milk gone blue, and they were swarming on his eyes and tongue, just flitting in and out between his lips. A gun was on the floor, the action open. Almighty Christ, I won't forget that sight. There never was a mask that looked like that. And this next one, the next two I'm going to read are actually ones that Mary Finnegan gave a second life to. They're older poems that I had a chance to revise and republish in her very fine journal, Talk to Me in Long Lines. This one's called Preserves. I heard those girls of Amy's laugh at me for putting up these jars of beans and beets, for sweating at the stove when cans are sold for $1 at the IGA. They've had a dozen years of easy living and smirk at me for saying it won't last. Their mother ought to mind them how to act, but she don't discipline those girls at all. Might have to turn the TV off for that. One generation gives up thrifty ways, the next one mocks, then hard times come right back. Your head is screwed on straight, so I tell you rather than wasting time and breath on them. When I was young, it was good times that seemed a fairy tale. Depression, then a war, an 18-year-old girl who barely said I do before her man shipped off for France. Those years brought out the best and worst in us. Look to your right, a saintly charity. Look to your left, the stinking stain of Cain. One spring when I was still a little squirt, I got myself a lesson in both sides. Daddy had given most of our potatoes to uncles out of work in Robertsdale, then taken in a boy who wandered down the lane and offered help for room and board. He was a handsome boy, a good one too. He saw we needed fewer mouths to feed, so he walked down that lane again one night, left us a note of thanks beside the stove. We culled the poorest layers from the flock and willed those peas and cabbages to grow. Then Daddy spent a week away from home working for wages at the 1,000 Steps. On the third night, we heard the dog bark twice. My brother stuck his head outside the door, then sent us back to bed. He was 14, acting the man but with a boy's full sense. We found our collie by the garden gate, stretched stiff with gashes in his fur, poor boy. He probably ran to them with wagging tail. They used a greasy sack to muffle him. Then on they went about their thievery. The roosting hens, the smokehouse ham and bacon, the lettuce, turnips, peas, and cabbages. They trampled what they didn't steal away. My brother got the gun, but Mama stopped him. He bawled while we replanted ruined rows. Things got so bad that year we ate the cleanings when heifers dropped their calves, just boiled them. That kind of hunger changes how you look at empty cupboard shelves, at people too. Besides, those store-bought cans don't have no taste. And this next poem is called Carousel Man. It's another one of these monologues. Nobody trusts a carny. That's a fact. Some mums don't even let me lift their kid up on a horse for fear I have designs. Sometimes a local church meets at the grounds. I feel the eyes when I get past the plate. I have a trailer in the Poconos and work the ski resorts all winter long, make furniture and cabinets on the side to customize those overpriced chalets. This job ain't one I need to make ends meet. Not that the carny crew is full of saints. I'm careful where I put my wallet down. But bosses try to weed the perverts out because they know that spot won't wash away. They lose their contracts when it hit the news. I've seen some awful things at carnivals, but carnies weren't involved in most of them. One place was running dog fights after hours. I couldn't sleep for all the snarls and yelps. One time I saw a mother whip her kid with plastic pipe out in the parking lot. I served an army stint right out of school, but never saw a killing till this job. Some boy who won a switchblade tossing rings and got the itch to try it right away. Meth's made things seedier in recent years, with tweakers turning tricks and porta-johns, raiding rides at night for parts and wire, their caved-in mugs as pale as graveyard ghouls. I'm giving you the wrong impression, though. The apple core ain't close to rotten yet. There's still a magic in the carnival. The laughter that you hear, the way the light looks on the spinning Ferris wheel at night, the way it glistens on the children's eyes when they go round and round the carousel. Their parents wear this smile that's bittersweet because they want to give their kid a life just like the pony ride that never ends. The carousel's a marvelous machine. I don't know where the company got it. It's really something else, our finest ride. I'd sooner quit than work the giant slide or pirate ship with all those smart-ass teens. It has an inner row that rises up and down, an outer row that's fixed for tots, bucking broncos and regal quarter horses, a prancing unicorn with golden horn, a saddled ostrich, elephant, and seal if you prefer to ride a wilder mount. 2 years ago, I made a horse for it. A new guy didn't look before he backed into the setup zone and mangled one. It bothered me to see the empty pole. I spent my free time carving poplar wood that winter. Didn't take the extra jobs. I ordered books off of the internet and even visited a Jersey shop. I worked by hand with chisels and a mallet. My first one was a costly, clunky dud, but then I got the hang of it and carved the kind of steed to make a cowboy proud. An Appaloosa with its chestnut spots, the varnish adding shine to every curve. I took him in my truck that spring when I reported to the warehouse where the rides are winterized. I helped with maintenance before we hit the circuit for the year. Turns out they'd already ordered one, not even cast out of aluminum, a cartoon pony made of fiberglass. Mine never left my truck bed till the fall. I won't deny that stung. I'd often thought about the kids who'd race to get him first, about the light he'd catch with every turn. He sat in my garage for half a year, collecting dust and bird shit in a corner. But this past spring, I showed him to the lady who manages our little trailer park. She plants some flowers by the northern gate. I made a post and tiny canopy, a one-horse carousel in miniature, ringed round by zinnias and marigolds. It's not exactly what I had in mind, but he'll still stir some wonder in this world. All right, I think I want to read just 3 more. This is one called Undoer of Knots. It's a short one. Late afternoon, a seethe of thundercloud voids out the ridge. He thumbs his rosary. He used to yearn for how 4 drinks allowed and now without a past. No weight, no shroud. They seem to solve the ancient mystery of time most sorrowful. But 4 drinks bleed to more. The storm winds bend the backyard tree. The first thick raindrops fall. Dark glass indeed. His mumbled prayer seeks out the deepest need. Lady, undo the knot of history. Yeah, so just these final 2. I think I'm going to skip this one, and I'm going to read Crumbling Leaves. This is a poem. I taught at a boarding school for a couple years, or more than that, actually, while I was finishing up my PhD. That's where I met my best friend, Rob Wiley, and he and I were teachers together. So this is kind of a poem about those years we had together, and we've always lived pretty far apart since then. This is called Crumbling Leaves. Young teachers at the crumbling boarding school, we climbed the creaking attic steps to sleuth old Spivey's lunchroom tip. He says among the props of movies filmed there for quick cash and lean years of the school, one tragedy, one comedy, but neither apt to stand the test of time. Among the podiums, 3-legged chairs, and globes with boundaries long redrawn. There is, supposedly, a box of Bibles in the KJV that once sat racked in chapel pews. My friend's class wept with mighty Gilgamesh for Enkidu, kneeled with King Priam when he kissed the hands that killed his noble son and city's hope, and now they want to join the Exodus. 9th graders, he has stirred the love of lore and tales of ancient times, old mysteries. We find the Bibles packed up tidily, and then turn to the unboxed tumbling stacks in the south dormer's sharp, persistent light. Some purge of downstairs shelves, a donor's gift, collection of a former English teacher, a temporary stash turned permanent. The topmost have no binding left to hold loose leaves that crumble when we handle them. Heartache for 2 who spend their meager wage on Faulkner, Kierkegaard, and Akhmatova, who spend their nights in cheap beer arguments in the unending reader's seminar. But deeper in the dormer's cache are some degraded, yet still sound enough to take and read, including Chinese poetry bound in torn cloth, the gilded title chipped, red cover drained to brown. We read Li Po, no burning bush, but falling petals, wine, and absent friends missed on a mountaintop. A decade and a half have passed since then. Dramatically unraining clouds boil in the sky's scorched kettle overhead. The wind lifts ghosts out of October's droughty dust. And we're still learning how to live the emptiness. And this last poem that I'm going to share with you today is called Palm Sunday Before the Eclipse. Evening routine, first canvas coat, then leash, then we are in the darkness darkening. A tree is silhouetted on the hill, yearning telluric roots mirrored above by latticed limbs, still bare, sky blue on black sopping up ink, all shadows lengthening beyond this branch or barn or man and dog to thicken swaths of night. We turn around and navigate intensities of gloom. 2 weeks from now, we'll take a pilgrimage to watch the moon and sun align themselves. Corona monstrancing a voided disk, mid-afternoon sunk into sudden dusk. Tree frogs will chant, street lamps will activate. A child proclaims apocalypse and laughs. Tonight, reversal of another sort. The grail moon rises from banked clouds to pour gold glow on ways we thought were Stygian. A lunar morning after fleeting night. Tin roofs and parked machinery blaze out. The spring's first dandelions, daffodils, forsythia, all yellow roadside buds burn brilliant now in aura'd alleluia. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much,